music serves as a universal language that connects people on a profound, intangible level. But how do musicians do this? I'm Warren Buchholz, Jazz Brand Manager at WUSF, and I'm on a mission to find out.
One of the great friends of music, one of the great friends of community.
Master percussionist, amazing educator.
Mr. John Santos.
John Santos.
John Santos lives in my heart. It pays no rent.
Meet Kathryn Golden and Ashley James, a filmmaking duo who founded Searchlight Films, a full-service production company specializing in the making of documentary films for television. Their films have appeared on PBS, CBS, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and the BBC. Their most recent film, Santos, Skin the Skin, spotlights John Santos, an Afro-Latin percussionist, activist, and educator. They sat down with me over Zoom to talk more about their project and how they create films that empower music, artists, and the world around us. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Kathryn Golden and Ashley James. Your film on Santos was beautiful, I have to say that. And I think it went beyond the life of John Santos, and it really held a lens to this profound effect that music, especially of Latin influence, has on us as human beings. Before we get into Santos, Skin on Skin, I always ask, what inspired both of you to get into filmmaking?
Well, filmmaking is a lot like dreaming. It's also, it just was a language that I felt the most at ease and comfortable with in terms of expressing myself. So I started out in painting and sculpture. Really loved both of those mediums. But all it took was one elective in filmmaking when I was in college, and that was it. You know, I never looked back. I still like to paint a little, from time to time, or dabble, I would say. I don't really commit to it like a painter would, but yeah, filmmaking is it for me.
I actually was a journalist before I got into filmmaking, but my true love was photography. Even though I was a writer, I wrote for. I lived in New England and wrote for a newspaper called the Hartford Times, and did a lot of different things for that newspaper and that particular genre of work. And but I grew restless and came out to visit a friend who was going to the San Francisco Art Institute in San Francisco, and decided that I was going to go back to school, even though I still had a job as a writer. Because I wanted to really learn a new way of doing photography. So I I applied and I got into the San Francisco Art Institute, into the graduate program, took a film class, and like Kathryn, when I saw that first work print on the wall in my apartment, I was hooked. It was really what I wanted to do. And I found what I wanted to do with my life. And so I was able to combine making films with my journalism. And I went to documentary film. So didn't pursue it as an artist, but did pursue it as a documentarian. And I met Kathryn, who completed, my life really, it just seemed like, it just felt right. So we were able to embark on a journey that continues today after 3 or 4 decades.
I don't think there's anything better than finding that drive, that something that fulfills you. And it seems like creating documentaries is just that.
It's wonderful. We had a chance to go to Hollywood. We had opportunities, but to make dramatic films, but I don't know, there was something about the documentarian's lifestyle that appealed to both of us.
And you've done work with PBS, CBS, the BBC. How do you go about distributing a film for these kinds of broad companies?
Most of our films have been licensed for broadcast. So that's been in all the different realms that you just listed. And in some cases, we bring an idea to a broadcaster, and the film is licensed before we've really begun the film or made the film. We have an idea. We can show a little bit of what we'd like to do and write and describe it, and it gets licensed right that way, and then we can make the film, and it's already has secured a broadcast. There's a variety of ways to go about doing it. In some cases, we've been approached by the broadcaster. That's happened many times, and some of it it's always based on relationships, and work that we've done in the past, and sometimes it's additionally based on the fact that we're in a certain place, which is convenient to capture the story and produce the movie or the segment that will be broadcast later. So that always happens in a variety of ways. But to follow up on what Ashley just said, it gets harder all the time for everybody. I think we speak for most all documentarians at this point in the world of documentary films. It's just been incredibly difficult with the way distribution has been evolving and broadcasting has been evolving, to get the bulk of the work that's produced out there for people to see.
Funding especially is difficult. We worked with a lot of other production companies who everybody right now is going through a transition. It's interesting. Kathryn had her film in the Mendocino Film Festival, and there was a forum there where the moderator of the forum kept talking about how this was the golden age of documentary film. He was off by a few years because the golden age lasted maybe 2 or 3 years. Before and after that, it's been a slog, I have to say. But we still continue to do it. We collaborate with other producers who a lot of times will send us on a journey to do, different things for them, cinematography, editing, producing. So we have a lot of skills that we, frankly, that we have relied on over the years. And they're not always about our own films. But the joy of working with other people and, not having to raise funds for some of those films, having them to do it is really, a wonderful feeling, I have to say, very frankly.
Yeah. Some of the films you've created, Dancing in Saigon, Bomba, Dancing the Drum, Kirk, and now Santos, Skin the Skin. How do you approach creatively, creating one of these documentaries? Where do you start?
They all start in different places, believe it or not. I mean, I think maybe if there is one common denominator, it would be that, at a certain point, I thought about the activity of shooting the documentary films that Ashley and I make, and I thought to myself, wow, this is really great for me. I'm a person who's always curious and loves asking questions. And now I have work where that's what I do. They all start in different places, and being curious is the one place. Sometimes people come to us, with, we're going to go and do this. Do you think it would make a good documentary film? Or I know of this person or this event or this performance that's happening. I mean, all these different ways have films come together for us. And in the case of John Santos, we, Ashley and I had been working for ourselves and for other people and always moving around. This was going on for years where we were flying here and, flying to another country, landing, documenting things that were going on, bringing the footage back, and kind of juggling, different films and different phases of different films and cycling through the years. And we really enjoyed that life. At the same time, we were really happy to think about making a film about a person who lived in proximity to where we lived. And it's the case with John. We all live in the San Francisco Bay Area. We live in the East Bay, and we just loved this idea that if we shot it, we had an idea, we wanted to ask another question, or, not that John can, drop everything and sit down and talk to us anytime we had a question, but that, even in the phase of editing, which, comes after shooting and after the interviewing, there's always, a time for what we call pickups. And that is when you get to a juncture and there's, would be great to just say one more thing about that, or let's follow that idea a little further, to be able to just pick up and go over there. Or, John was having some really exciting project that he was working on, and we could actually include it and shoot it, whether we were going to include it or not. We could shoot it and have it, and if it worked, it worked.
How much footage ended up on the cutting room floor? Like, how many hours did you have?
So much.
Of course.
It's actually always painful. But in this case, it was extra painful because there was just so much good music, and so in so many different ways, and we would have loved to include it all, but we just couldn't.
So there's enough for a sequel, basically. A cinematic universe of John Santos.
Extras on what would be called DVD extras.
Yeah. I don't know about another film. I will say also this idea, how the ideas come to us, how these films sort of become born. It's an idea, and I'll give you an example. Sometimes it's people we meet, people we're involved with. Kathryn, when we had little children, we went to when one of our sons was going to elementary school. We met a woman who was a expert in gifted education, and she it was just something by happened. It just sort of came out of the blue. And we became friends after working with her. And her story was so extraordinary. I think Kathryn came up with the idea, wow, wouldn't that make a great story? You saw probably a little bit of it. It's called Across Time and Space on our website.
Yeah.
And it had to do with German boarding schools before the second, well, not German boarding school, the evolution of German boarding schools during the political upheaval in the 20th century.
Well, really progressive, forward-thinking people who were involved in education, and
how they survived.
People were ahead of their time then, and would likely still be ahead of time in education, in this country. But they were really forward thinkers. And
then Bomba came about because we were working with Roberta Singer, who was a musicologist, while we were working on another film on the Cape Verdean community in New England. She was the head of the Massachusetts Arts Council. So she got us funding for that film because we were doing this film on the Cape Verdean community in Massachusetts and in New England. And she said, I want to do a film about Bomba, the Puerto Rican, about the Cepeda family. She was probably the foremost expert of Puerto Rican music and cultural music in the US. So we just sort of went. We said, okay, let's do it. Sometimes we would initiate it. Sometimes people would come to us. We'd met. And I don't know, there's electricity, there's a spark, there's chemistry sometimes you have with people.
Yeah.
And, it's been serendipitous. It's been an amazing journey that these experiences have come to us.
Ashley, you spoke about creating oral histories, one of your father. How do you create one? How much research do you do? What's your process there?
First of all, you got to be a good listener. And you have to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
And just let people go. Listen and feel where the conversation's going. Kathryn has a unique way of doing an interview, which is very interesting. She'll let people go on, and then there's something that happens. And I'm really not, I guess I can't speak for her, but I can feel it when it happens, where somebody says something and she'll pick up on it and then probe, but in a way that doesn't really offend them, but allows them to talk about who they are and what their story is. And it is an art. Someone should do an article on the psychology of documentary filmmaking, of interview, because in a way you have to, use psychology. You have to allow people to tell their story. That's really what I would say. One of the questions I ask is, what was your first memory? Talk about your first memory. Sometimes you ask questions that don't allow for a simple yes and no. You want stories. That's really what it is, because stories are what you're always looking for.
You both have such wonderful chemistry with one another. How did you both meet?
We met in art school.
And is that how Searchlight Films came about? You two kind of formed together and started creating these documentaries?
Came about because we graduated from school. We both have degrees. And, I was thinking, well, what's going to happen next? What are we going to do? A lot of people had these side jobs doing things to support themselves, and then they'd work on their art or their film, when they weren't doing that. And I thought, wow, isn't there a better way? Isn't there a way where we can try to use our skills and continue with a creative practice, but also find a way to support ourselves in a meaningful way? And we did it. We eventually figured out we needed to write a grant, to get funded to make a movie, a documentary film. But I was also thinking about our friends too, because, you don't make these films all by yourself. And especially when we started out, the equipment wasn't as, accessible. So it was more expensive, and it took more people to make things happen. And I thought, wow, we could, if we got the funding, we could hire a few of our friends too. And everybody would be doing better. So little by little, we managed that, and we got our first NEA, and it's, we've been off and running since then. I want to go back, though, to your question about oral histories, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
And that is that, I've always been really curious about other people. Even as a kid, I used to, I remember I was always going and visiting all my different neighbors' churches and temples, because I was curious where everybody went, on Sunday, or in some cases Saturday. And from there, I wanted to see, I visited their homes and loved to see how everybody made things work. Everybody did it a little differently, and there were different rules and different ways of living in different households. And I think that relates to, the questions that I'm interested in when I interview a person, is that I'm really interested in the way things work for them. And so it's not just what they're doing, but what motivates them, or what has motivated them, and what continues to motivate them. So even when you talk about things that are uncomfortable, or they get to an uncomfortable place, it's a good idea to see if people will keep talking.
We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Hey, I hope you're enjoying this and all the quality content we offer through WUSF. We need your help, though. Like everything in an overcapitalized society, things cost money to operate, like creating all of the awesome videos and podcasts you see here. Now, I could break out the puppies and play to Sarah McLachlan, and you break down and hit donate, but I think we're bigger people here. So, if you're able and willing, please donate your dollars today by visiting wusf.org/donate to get started. Anything helps, and your money goes toward producing all of this content, supporting our community, and a whole lot more. And if enough people do this, maybe these annoying ads will go away. Puppies! Donate today.
The drum called me, the sound of the drum called me. I started looking into the music of the tumbadora, the conga drum, and that just opened up the whole world. I got so pulled in.
I want to get to Santos, Skin the Skin now. And the title itself is fantastic. It really made me think of, the skin of a drum to the skin of a human hand, and how these congas are created by the earth and by humans. Can you explain more why you chose that title?
Well, titles are hard.
Yeah.
At least for me and for us. I think I speak for you too, Ashley. Titles are hard. It's a huge commitment, and it needs to do a lot, So I've never had a title from the beginning. They always seem to come in at the end. And in this case, Skin to Skin came up as it's a drummer's term, and it means exactly what you just described, the palm hitting the skin of the conga or the skin of the drum. And I really liked that, skin on skin, but I thought Skin to Skin made a better title for the film. And it actually means brings to mind different ideas and conjures different images for different people. And I'm kind of happy about that.
Yeah, it definitely does. You spent a lot of time with John, it seems, maybe over a few years. And what was the one thing that really stuck with you about John that you just continue to think of even to this day?
John reminds me in some ways of his career really sort of reminds me of what it's like to be an independent filmmaker. He's driven. That's what I would say about John Santos. His drive to continue to do what he does. He's been doing this for many, 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 many years. He doesn't give up. It's not easy being a musician who he himself says that he doesn't really make commercial music. He is a culturalist, I would say. He holds on to the culture of the music, and he's an educator. I mean, he uses his music to educate people on the roots of where it came from, the roots of where we all come from. So I'd say what has impressed me most about him is his drive to succeed, his drive to continue, and not compromise. he doesn't compromise his values.
I think for me, what's stuck with me is that when I look at John's audience, there is a multiracial, if you will. There's, all different kinds of people from all different kinds of backgrounds and different ages are attracted to his performances and events. And I really think that when you think about what it is that people are attracted to and what they stick to, because his audience really is a loyal audience. And I think that in all the drawing and the riffing and the creating around traditional rhythms, and John teaches about, he draws from the experiences of his ancestors, and in all of that, I think people feel inspired and encouraged that by experiencing this music and thinking about some of the ideas that are expressed in the music, that they can totally relate to their own background and to kind of what we're all doing in this space together, in this world together, in the culture that we create together. And that I really believe it's all done, with the catalyst being to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And that I know that when John was performing at the Smithsonian Folklife Festival, and we were shooting that's really what he expressed from the stage. And I was really moved by that. And that's really stuck with me.
John is a big educator and an activist. And there's a great segment in your film about how he fought against the Academy to get these awards back into place. And there's also a great shot of his drum with Impeach Bush, the sticker on it.
That.
Did you ever wrestle with how much activism to put into this film? I'm surely there's a lot of moments where John said things or held to his beliefs and values. Did you wrestle with that at all?
I did a bit in the editing room. I mean, that had to be a consideration in thinking about who was the audience for this film. I know he has some fans who are, really outspoken, ardent for different causes and for different beliefs. I think, though, that for the largest possible audience that we wanted to reach, we didn't want the film to be contained to a certain time or a certain movement because of the trajectory of John's career and his musical mission, really, goes beyond any certain moment, in any specific moment in our contemporary history or even in the past. I mean, if there was a particular political movement that his career really turned on, I would have felt that was necessary to do. But he's a musician, and I asked him when I went to cut the film, if there was a particular, because I was listening to all the music and looking at the music in terms of how it could interweave with the story of his life. And I asked John, which period of music that you've created is the most important to you that I should be sure, not to miss? And he said, what I'm doing right now is the most important music to me. And so we really concentrated on a 2-year span that we had done the most shooting, and that we really focused on shooting the film. We did a little bit of filming, and we went into his backstory, his life story. So we had to use different elements to to capture that or to tell that, illustrate that story. But that was really, those were the decisions that were made. So I think the film does a pretty good job of showing how involved he is without promoting any particular politics.
It was a very graceful way to present his politics and then transition into what is probably the most gut-wrenching part of the film, which was his loss of his daughter. What is next for you? What other projects have you been working on?
Well, we've got a couple of things in development. Probably the film that's the furthest along is a film about Ashley's family. And we've spent a bit of time in the archives and interviewing people. And I'll let him tell you more about that.
Well, the protagonist of the film is the writer Ann Petrie, who was my cousin, my father's first cousin, my second cousin. She was a prominent African-American writer and wrote the first novel that an African-American woman sold for over a million copies. I think it's 1.5 million copies in a span of like a year or two. She was a novelist. She was, and she wrote novels for children also, and short stories. But what's remarkable is that she is the product of her ancestors, my ancestors, and that's really the crux of the story. It's based on 400 letters that were handed down to Anne and then handed down to her daughter, Liz, who was our co-producer in this, from her ancestors, her uncles and aunts, my great uncles and aunts, that span the periods of the mid 1800s to about 1925, 1930, maybe even longer, because we're still going through some of this. And they're the memoirs of a middle-class family that traveled all over the world and became adventurers and writers and just really incredible people who had the gift of being able to write these incredible stories from the Spanish-American War, from the last, from the court of the last queen of Hawaii, from a jail in a sundown town in the South. And they influenced Anne. And so the film is called Ann Petrie and the James Family Letters.
In all the films that like this one, in all the films that Ashley and I are interested in and have produced and have in development, we really have strived to bring to the main stage or to the mainstream underserved stories that make up our national story. And if people are interested in finding out more about what we do, we have a website. They can do that, and it's at searchlightfilms.org. Okay. And for the John Santos movie, it's johnsantosmovie.com or santosskin-to-skin.com. And there's a way to sign up for our mailing list to learn more about what we do and where we're going with our films. We'd love to hear from people. And thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for listening. Be sure to check out WUSFjazz.org to watch local performances, find jazz events throughout Florida, listen to curated Spotify playlists, and a whole lot more. WUSFjazz.org. Today's audio was recorded over Zoom. Production assistance by Chandler Balcom, Adam Darbyshire, and Arenza Romero. The audio was edited by Scott Wackler. I'm Warren Buckles, host. Studio Sessions is a product of WUSF and is sponsored by Community Foundation Tampa Bay, with support from the Gobia Foundation, the Palladium, and by you. Thank you for your support. Learn more about jazz and Arts Axis Florida by visiting our website at wusfjazz.org. Copyright 2025 WUSF.